Most people hear one rule about Social Security and never question it. Wait. Wait until full retirement age. Better yet, wait until 70. Hold off as long as possible because every year you delay boosts the size of your monthly check. That advice gets repeated so often that anyone claiming early is made to look reckless, unprepared, or financially illiterate. And yet nearly two-thirds of Americans claim Social Security before reaching full retirement age. That's not a small minority. That's 2 out of every 3 people. So the real question is this: are millions of Americans all making the same dumb mistake, or is the standard advice missing something important? Because here's the part most financial commentators never want to say out loud. Claiming at 62 is not always the wrong move. In some situations, it can be the most intelligent decision available. The popular logic sounds airtight. If your full retirement age is 67, then waiting beyond that point increases your benefit by about 8% per year. Hold out until age 70 and you can collect 124% of your full benefit amount. On paper, that sounds unbeatable. A bigger check every month sounds like the obvious win, but that advice only works if your life follows a very specific script. It assumes you'll live long enough for delayed claiming to pay off. It assumes you can comfortably go without the income right now. It assumes no one else in your household is waiting on your filing decision to access benefits. It assumes your health will remain steady. It assumes your cash flow is strong enough to ignore the income. It assumes timing has no real consequence. For some people, those assumptions are true. For many others, they are not. That's why this decision should never be treated like a one-size-fits-all formula. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 7 real reasons claiming Social Security at 62 can actually make sense. These are not excuses for impatience. They are not emotional justifications. They are legitimate planning factors that advisors consider when building retirement strategies. And by the end, you'll see why the smartest claiming age is not about what sounds best in theory. It's about what fits your reality. Before we get into those 7 reasons, we need to define the framework. If you were born in 1960 or later, your full retirement age is 67. That is the point where you receive 100% of your primary insurance amount, or PIA, which is based on your highest 35 years of earnings. You claim at 62 and you lock in your benefit 5 years early. The trade-off is permanent. Your monthly payment is reduced by roughly 30%. So if your full benefit at 67 would have been $4,000 a month, claiming at 62 brings that number down to about $2,800. That is a serious gap. Now look at the other end of the spectrum. If you delay until 70, delayed retirement credits push that same $4,000 benefit to nearly $5,200 a month. That means the difference between claiming at 62 and waiting until 70 can exceed $2,200 per month at the top end. Which leads to the question almost everyone asks first: when does waiting actually pay off? In other words, at what age does the person who delayed finally pull ahead of the person who started earlier with smaller checks? Here's the general math. If you compare 62 versus 67, the break-even point is around age 78. If you compare 62 versus 70, it lands around age 80 or 81. If you compare 67 versus 70, it's roughly age 82. That changes the conversation immediately, because if you claim at 62 and live well beyond 80, waiting likely would have produced more lifetime income. But if you claim at 62 and die at 76, taking benefits early may leave you ahead by tens of thousands of dollars. That's not a loophole. That's how the system is built. Social Security was designed so that people who live to average life expectancy receive roughly similar lifetime totals no matter when they file. The monthly amounts are adjusted so early claimers get smaller checks for more years, while delayed claimers get larger checks for fewer years. The core difference is not necessarily how much you receive overall. It is when you receive it. And once you understand that, the entire decision becomes more strategic. So let's begin with the first major reason early filing can make sense. Reason 1, your filing decision may unlock spousal or dependent benefits. This is one of the most ignored parts of the Social Security conversation, and it matters far more than most people realize. A spouse cannot begin collecting spousal benefits until the primary earner files for retirement benefits first. So if one person in the household has a strong earnings record while the other has little or no qualifying benefit of his own, the second person may be waiting on the first person's decision. That changes everything. Spousal benefits can be worth up to 50% of the primary earner's full retirement age benefit. For some households, that is not a minor add-on. That is meaningful monthly income. So if one spouse is ready to file, but the higher earner delays all the way to 70 just to maximize his own check, the household may be giving up years of income in the process. And that means what looks optimal for one person on paper may actually be damaging to the family's bigger financial picture. What looks like the smartest move for one person can be the wrong move for the household. A claiming strategy that maximizes your individual check may actually reduce your family's total income over time. Picture this. A 62-year-old worker has a strong earnings history. His spouse is also 62 but has very limited work credits. If the higher earner delays filing until 70 to maximize his own benefit, the spouse may have to wait 8 more years before any spousal benefit becomes available. That is 8 full years of income the household chose not to receive. Yes, the larger personal benefit at 70 may look better in isolation, but when you zoom out and look at total household cash flow, filing earlier can sometimes produce the stronger overall result. This matters most when there is a major earnings gap between spouses. The right answer is not always found by optimizing one benefit in a vacuum. It comes from measuring the entire household outcome. Reason 2. Your health suggests you may not have a long retirement window. This is the part people avoid, but avoiding it does not make it less real. No one enjoys thinking about mortality, but building a retirement strategy on the assumption that you will definitely live deep into old age, despite medical issues or a family history that points the other way, is not hopeful planning. It is flawed planning. The average person who reaches 62 may live roughly another 22 years, putting average life expectancy near 84. But averages are blunt tools. They do not describe your body, your family history, or your actual odds. If you are dealing with chronic illness, serious health concerns, or a pattern of shorter lifespans in your family, the math changes fast. Go back to the break-even analysis. If the comparison is 62 versus 70 and your realistic expectation is that you may not live beyond your late 70s, taking benefits early can leave you with more lifetime income. That is not an easy reality to accept, but it can be a rational one. In that situation, claiming early may be the most practical way to make sure you actually collect the value available to you. A larger monthly payment at 70 has no real advantage if you are not around long enough to receive it for very long. Social Security is meant to support retirement. If your retirement is likely to be shorter, there is a strong case for receiving those benefits sooner rather than later. So, reason 3. Survivor benefit planning can make early filing smarter in a marriage. This is one of the more advanced strategies, and almost nobody talks about it clearly. When one spouse dies, the surviving spouse may be able to step into the deceased spouse's benefit if that amount is higher. That is the survivor benefit, and its value depends on what the deceased spouse was receiving at the time of death. That creates some important strategic possibilities. Imagine one spouse has weaker health, while the other spouse has the higher earning record and is expected to live longer. The lower earner might file early at 62 and start collecting right away while both are still alive. Later, after his death, the surviving spouse may continue with the larger benefit already tied to the stronger earnings record. There is another version of this as well. If the higher earning spouse has a serious health condition and may not live as long, the lower earning spouse may choose to file early on his own record now, collect income immediately, and later switch to the larger survivor benefit after the higher earner passes away. Instead of squeezing one record for the maximum monthly amount, the couple coordinates both records across time. That kind of strategy requires honesty, planning, and uncomfortable but necessary conversations about health and longevity. But for couples facing a clear life expectancy imbalance, it can be a very strong reason to begin benefits earlier on the lower earner's record. Reason 4. You are retired, no longer working, and already have substantial assets. At first, this sounds backward. Why would someone with a large nest egg claim Social Security early? Wouldn't a financially stronger retiree be better positioned to wait? Not always. Here's why. If your retirement accounts are large and still invested, those assets may continue compounding over time. But the moment you begin pulling money from them to fund your lifestyle, you interrupt that compounding. Every withdrawal reduces the capital that could have stayed invested in growing. So in some cases, claiming Social Security early can actually protect the portfolio. Instead of drawing as much from investments, you use Social Security to cover part of your expenses. That allows more of the portfolio to remain untouched, giving it more time in the market. Under the right conditions, the added growth from preserving those assets can outweigh the value of waiting for a bigger Social Security check. There is another advantage too. This approach can reduce sequence of returns risk, which becomes especially dangerous in the early years of retirement. Here's where the risk becomes very real. If the market falls hard in the first few years of retirement while you are making large withdrawals from your portfolio, the damage can be lasting. Pulling money out during a downturn locks in losses and leaves less capital available for the eventual recovery. That is exactly why having Social Security coming in as a baseline income source can matter so much. It reduces the pressure to sell investments at the worst possible time. This will not be the best move for everyone. The outcome depends on several factors: the size of your portfolio, your expected investment returns, your tax situation, and how long you are likely to live. But for some retirees with meaningful assets and no intention of returning to work, as to taking Social Security earlier while leaving more of the portfolio invested can produce the better long-term result. Reason 5. You want to claim early so you can invest the payments yourself. This idea is connected to the previous reason, but it is a little different. Some people do not claim early because they need the money. They claim early because they want to put that money to work. The reasoning is simple. Claiming at 62 instead of 70 gives you 8 additional years of payments. The monthly amount is smaller, yes, but those earlier checks can be invested. And if the money compounds at a rate higher than roughly 7% to 8% annually over time, the total value of those invested payments may eventually outpace the benefit of waiting for a larger guaranteed check. But this strategy is not conservative. It is a calculated risk. Our markets do not deliver smooth returns every year. Some years are strong, some are brutal. If you claim early, invest the money, and then run into a major downturn, you may end up worse off. In that case, you gave up a guaranteed increase in future Social Security income in exchange for market returns that failed to show up. Still, for disciplined investors with real experience, a proven ability to stay the course, and no dependence on Social Security for monthly living expenses, this can be a valid strategy. In effect, they are betting that their own investing can outperform the guaranteed growth embedded in delayed claiming. For the right person, that is a reasonable bet. Reason 6. You already have another guaranteed income stream on the way. This is another situation where early filing can make more sense than people assume. If you know that a pension, deferred income annuity, or another dependable lifetime income source will begin in a few years, then Social Security does not have to carry the full burden of supporting your later retirement years. Imagine you are 62, retired, and no longer earning income, but a pension will start at 65. Or perhaps you bought a deferred annuity years ago that begins paying at 67. In either case, you already know that a stable income floor is coming later. That changes how you view Social Security. Instead of delaying it to create future stability, you may choose to use it as a bridge. Benefits claimed at 62 can help cover the gap between retirement and the start of that future income source. Once the pension or annuity kicks in, your income foundation is already in place, and Social Security becomes supplemental rather than essential. The key question is whether you can comfortably fund that waiting period on your own. If you have more than enough savings to cover the next several years, delaying may still be worthwhile. But if early filing smooths out your cash flow and avoids large withdrawals from savings, it can be a smart and practical solution. Reason 7. You cannot keep working and you need the income now. Sometimes the decision is not strategic, it is simply real life. A lot of people plan to work until 65 or 67 and then discover that life has other plans. Maybe your body gives out first. Years of physical labor in construction, manufacturing, or other demanding work have taken their toll. By 62, your knees are done, your back is failing, or constant pain makes another few years on the job unrealistic. Maybe the problem is not health. Maybe you lost your job and despite doing everything right, the replacement opportunity never comes. You send out applications, sit through interviews, and still find that the market has little interest in paying someone in his early 60s what he used to earn. Age discrimination may be illegal, but that does not stop it from shaping outcomes in ways that are hard to prove and impossible to ignore. Whatever the cause, if you cannot continue working and you do not have enough saved to cover the years ahead, then Social Security exists for exactly this moment. That is not weakness. That is not failure. That is the system doing what it was designed to do. Of course, it still makes sense to look at every alternative before filing. Could you switch into less demanding work? Could you earn remotely? Could you rely on savings temporarily while exploring one last transition? But once those options are truly exhausted, the answer becomes clear. If you need the money because work is no longer realistic, then claiming early is not a mistake. It is the right move. Do not let the perfect option stop you from making the right one. And do not let embarrassment keep you from using a benefit you spent decades funding. Now let's talk about the situations where filing at 62 is probably the wrong move. First, if you are still working and bringing in strong earned income, early filing is usually a bad decision. Before full retirement age, Social Security applies an earnings limit. In 2026, that limit is $24,480. If you earn more than that while collecting benefits, the government withholds $1 for every $2 you make above the threshold. So think about what that means. You lock in a permanently reduced benefit by claiming early, then you lose part of those already smaller checks because your income is too high. That is a messy outcome, and in most cases it does not make financial sense. Second, if Social Security will be the main pillar of your retirement income, waiting deserves serious consideration. When that check is your foundation, the monthly amount matters a lot more. The gap between about $2,800 and roughly $4,100 a month is not cosmetic. It can be the difference between stability and constant pressure. In that kind of situation, the strategy is often simple. Keep earning as long as you reasonably can and delay benefits as long as your circumstances allow. The increase in guaranteed monthly income carries far more weight when you do not have multiple backup income streams. Third, if long life runs in your family and your health is strong, the numbers generally lean toward waiting. If the men in your family routinely lived into their 90s, if you stay active, and if you are not dealing with major chronic illness, there is a good chance you will live beyond the break-even age. And if that happens, delaying benefits usually produces more total lifetime income. There is another layer here that most people never fully appreciate. Social Security is not just one simple decision with one simple formula. Once you start factoring in spousal benefits, survivor benefits, divorced spouse rules, and different timing combinations, there are hundreds of possible claiming strategies. A basic 62 versus 70 comparison is only the first layer. Real life is more complicated than that. That is also why relying on a simple break-even chart can be dangerous. Your personal situation may involve details that generic advice completely misses. So what should you do instead? Start with your numbers. Pull up your Social Security account and look closely at what your benefit would be at 62, 67, and 70. Do not rely on vague assumptions. Know the actual figures. Next, evaluate your health honestly, not emotionally, not optimistically. Honestly, look at your medical condition, your family history, and your realistic life expectancy. Use real information, not wishful thinking. Then step back and look at the full household picture if you are married. The goal is not always to maximize one person's check. The goal is to build the strongest total outcome. In some cases, the higher earners should delay and the lower earners should claim earlier. In other cases, the reverse may work better. Ages, earnings history, and health all matter. After that, consider every other income source that will support you in retirement. Will you have a pension? A large retirement savings, rental income, investment income? Is Social Security the core of the plan, or is it one piece of a larger structure? That answer changes everything. And if this still feels too complex, getting professional help can be worth it. A fee-only financial planner who understands claiming strategies can model the decision properly. Spending a few $100s for a real analysis may save or earn you tens of thousands over the course of retirement. The average retirement age in America is 62, not 67. Not 70, 62, and 2/3 of people claim before reaching full retirement age. Some of them do it badly, but many are making a rational choice based on the life they actually have. That is the point. Social Security is personal. The claiming decision is personal. Now, nobody should shame you for considering early benefits, and nobody should pressure you to delay just because the spreadsheet says it looks cleaner. The best financial choices are not the ones that win in theory. They are the ones that fit your real health, your real timeline, and your real needs. This is not personal financial advice. A qualified professional should help you evaluate your own situation. But whatever you decide, make the choice from clarity, not fear. And remember this, claiming at 62 is not always surrender. Sometimes it is strategy.